Hello YouTubers, I just got done seeing Spider-Man Homecoming for the first time. I know it's been a while since it's been released, but I have finally seen it, and at first I was kind of scared of seeing it. To start off, I've been a Spider-Man fan since the 90s cartoon on Fox Kids, and the PS1 Spider-Man game. From there, I grew up with the Tobey Maguire films, directed by Sam Raimi. And Spider-Man 3 was the first big letdown. After that, you had The Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield with a reboot. The first one I thought was okay, but we kind of had to retread the origin story. Amazing Spider-Man 2 has some of the best moments and worst moments of a Spider-Man film. And that's just sad. So, with yet another reboot, I was kind of skeptical. The reviews were mostly positive, but you had a lot of other Spider-Man enthusiasts, Spider-Man fans, who were severely disappointed. And I was kind of afraid going into this film that I would end up basically making a long rant. It's not the perfect Spider-Man film I wanted, but it's not bad, as others say. It actually is quite good. It does things very differently than the comics. I was expecting more of a spectacular Spider-Man type of comic, or like Ultimate Spider-Man type of film, where you still deal with his teenage problems. You just get more of the scientist, the intelligent Peter Parker, without anybody really needing to come to his rescue. The Peter Parker from the comics, who yet, even though he's a superhero, still deals with being a teenager / young adult. So coming into Spider-Man Homecoming, I was kind of skeptical and I was just afraid I wasn't going to like the film. Well, I actually did like the film. To start off, I don't think it's better than the first two Tobey Maguire films. It's a bit above Amazing Spider-Man, but I don't think it's the best Spider-Man film to date. It does have some issues as far as like the editing, action, and certain characterizations of popular characters from the comic. Other than that, it's a well-crafted teenage film. I have to take myself back and not look at it as an adult. I have to wonder, hey, how would I have liked this film when I was in high school or middle school? I don't know as much because I was a real big fan of the Tobey Maguire films, which are actually more close to the comics than people realize. I love Tom Holland's performance in Captain America Civil War. He was a standout in the small amount of footage he had. And the first 10 minutes of this film starts really, really well. I love it. They pretty much have like a cell phone recap of the events from Civil War. The humor is on spot. He is Peter Parker, and I think another thing that helps it, I loved all the Peter Parkers, but whether it's Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, or Tom Holland, but what helps Tom Holland is that he's actually a teenager. He's not a 30-year-old pretending to be in high school. No, and that's why it works. It has a level of authenticity you see in John Hughes films or like Stranger Things on Netflix. Having him be his own age in high school really helps make it more grounded, authentic, and more relatable in that fashion. I wasn't sure what to think of the character of Ned at first in the trailer. He's kind of more like the friend Miles Morales has in the comic books, but he does a fine job. I was afraid it was going to be like a different type of Harry Osborn. He really is his own character, and I was kind of really worried about the humor in the trailers. It seemed cringeworthy, but that's one thing. A lot of the humor and scenes from the trailers really have a different feeling once you see them within the context of the film. And that's one of my cons. A lot of the stuff, especially the first 30 minutes of the movie, is shown in the trailer, like almost in order. Entire scenes. Some scenes didn't make it, such as, wait a second, Hulk gives it away on the Avengers scene. Stuff like that. But you do get Tony Stark, and it's kind of cool seeing a connected universe. They have a prologue of Michael Keaton's character, the Vulture, and he pretty much is in construction, and damage control pretty much came in and took away his job, basically, of getting damage from what happened in the first Avengers with the Chitauri technology. So he decides to steal the technology and use it as weapons, as heist to get money. And he has a big vendetta against Tony Stark, so we get to see his motivations. In many ways, it goes back to the best comic book villains and Spider-Man villains, characters. They're human. They deal with issues. He's not just like waking up one morning saying, I'm going to rule the world. No, he has motivations of being a villain. This is probably one of the best villains. I liked Lizard in Amazing Spider-Man, but it's probably one of the best villains since Alfred Molina's portrayal of Doc Ock in Spider-Man 2. As far as being a human character, and you really get to see where Vulture's coming from. I think the film could have had more of him. Whether you may like or hate this film, Michael Keaton does give a phenomenal performance as Vulture. He's not entirely like the Vulture from the comics. It kind of makes me wonder what John Malkovich would have been like as Vulture, but he does a fine job, and again, kind of tied to Birdman, it's kind of funny seeing him as this villain once being Batman. You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. You have a different crush, and Zendaya's character plays Michelle. They kind of hinted at being MJ later, but I hope not. I don't know. The characterizations are off. I wish they had the regular characters from the comics, but I can understand why. They've been overused. They want to do something different. That's what I have to say. This film is very fresh. It's a John Hughes teenage comedy put with Spider-Man, but the one thing I do love about this film, even though he's a superhero, he's still a human being that deals with teenage problems, and that's something that the best Spider-Man comics have always featured with Peter Parker. Peter Parker is just as important as Spider-Man, and when their lives intersect, crazy things happen, and that's one thing I really, really loved about this film. Marissa Tomei did a good job as Aunt May. She's just really young, and it just feels off. You don't have that kind of paternal, maternal, just kind of mother-son relationship as you had in the Tobey Maguire films, or even with Sally Field and Andrew Garfield in The Amazing Spider-Man. So I just want a little bit more from their chemistry there. My one beef about this is Flash Thompson. I know he's supposed to be that character who thinks he's like big stuff and really he's just kind of like lame, making jokes and stuff as a bully. That works, but like I don't know why Peter Parker's intimidated by him. I don't know why he's just worried. He's a little shrimp. He's like a little Indian kid that's skinny. I'm like, he's not like freaking Sofia Vergara's husband, not freaking Deathstroke as Flash Thompson, or even the skateboarder bully from Amazing. So, like, you see the skinny kid as Flash Thompson. I'm like, why is he giving Peter Parker trouble? Peter Parker could kick his butt without spider abilities, without powers. So it's just kind of interesting seeing that. There is a little bit more to Peter Parker than there is action in this, but I do like the action. The last set piece is really well done. A little bit of computerization, but that's in all of these movies. The Washington Monument scene was a standout, and yeah, he has his little glider wings like from the comic. And the suit design, I like the suit design. It's not my favorite suit, but it definitely has that cartoon comic book look. Very Steve Ditko in the eyes. I just wanted a little bit more detailing in the suit. And he ends up wearing a hoodie when he doesn't have the suit. That's some of the problems. Tony Stark takes away his suit, but I do like it because there's a theme of like the suit doesn't define the man defines the suit, and if you're nothing without the suit, then you shouldn't have it. I just love that theme. A very great coming-of-age tale, especially for this hero who's, despite popular belief, is still kind of inexperienced. It does kill me to see him not as an Avenger, though, since he is a freaking Avengers member in the comic, but with all the rights issues and stuff, it's nice to finally see him in this universe. I would love to see him grow old. I think that's why they casted Peter Parker so young in this. We're going to see him mature. We're going to see him develop throughout the years and eventually become the Spider-Man we all know and love from the comics. I mean, he is. He was a kid in the comics, but we're going to get to see the later on stuff. And it'll be very interesting to see that. The editing, after that prologue, we then have Marvel Studios finally, instead of at the beginning, with the Spider-Man theme. I wish I heard it more in the film, but the editing does feel a bit odd. There's certain things that are just kind of left open to interpretation. They don't spoon-feed you, but at the same time, they're just details that are just like left out. Not quite plot holes, but very close to being there. But I do like the whole high school aspect of it. It's very much of a teenage, kind of super bad John Hughes vibe. Homecoming's there. We get to see him dealing with having a crush, and it's nice seeing like certain nods to the Marvel Universe with Captain America and Thor, and just like, how would that be like in that world? But also, there's deeper themes here about like helping the little guy, stuff being above the Avengers' pay grade, and really of like why Spider-Man's so important in this universe. What makes him the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man? Before I move on to other spoilers, what score do I give it? I give it a 4 out of 5. It's not the worst film. It's not the best, though. I mean, everybody, you can have your own opinion, but me personally, I don't think this is the best Spider-Man film. It's up there, but it's nowhere near the first two Tobey Maguire films, especially Spider-Man 2. That's still the best Spider-Man film to date. But it is an entertaining film on its own, and I have to say something, it's different. At least it went to a different venue. At least it went to a different set of characters. Another gripe I have, Shocker is in it, and the first Shocker is actually much more like Shocker from the comics than the second Shocker, and that kind of upset me. You do have a nod to Scorpion later, But it's much like Amazing Spider-Man with like that serum. I kind of hate all these villains coming from the same place or one group. I kind of wish they were set separately, like in the original films or the comics. That would have been kind of cool instead of them being just like in a super villain group. And some of the jokes, even though they are teenagers, was just a little bit tiresome, a little bit juvenile. But like you can kind of expect that since they're in high school. But above all, this Marvel formula of just the jokes every now and then is just getting really tiresome. But Spider-Man can afford to be light. He does crack jokes, but not to the level of the comics or Andrew Garfield. But I have to say, Tom Holland does a great job as Peter Parker. And again, I like dealing with the real aspect of being a hero and his everyday issues. I hope we see more of that. Hope we see more of Aunt May. And I just didn't like that ending. You have Aunt May just saying, like, what the f***? And seeing him in a Spider-Man suit, and I'm just like, wow. I mean, it was good, it was funny, but I'm like, that's the ending? You went from, like, the first Tobey Maguire movie of him swinging throughout New York City off a flagpole in the Empire State Building to, like, what the F, Peter? I don't know. I was expecting something more epic. Hopefully, in the future installments, we can get down to the normal Spider-Man. Not so much of, like, hey, where is his place now that we have the rights back in a certain way in this universe. Hopefully we can move forward to a real Spider-Man film, because I think Tom Holland is a fantastic actor and he does a great portrayal as Peter Parker. I just hope to see more of the Spider-Man we all know and love from the comics. And it'll be interesting to see what villains and stories they tackle. Above all, I thought I was going to either like find this film okay or just really hate it, and I'm glad that it wasn't a very, very bad movie. Now, for your hardcore Spider-Man fans, this isn't everything that you may have wanted. I know a lot of people really love this. You're going to give it a 10 out of 10. To me, it was an almost perfect film, but there's just some areas I think that needed more work story-wise and editing. And it was cool seeing him with gadgets, but at the same time, it was almost like Iron Boy instead of Spider-Man. And I want to see more of that Peter Parker, who's really super intelligent. We kind of got a little bit of that here, but more that where he doesn't need saving by Tony Stark. Realistically, he is a kid, but in the comics and earlier films, he was a very smart, intelligent individual who could figure out a lot of things on his own without Iron Man having to save his butt. And there is that scene on the ferry that was really well done, but they made it seem like it was going to be like another train scene with him like saving people. And really, like always, Iron Man comes to the rescue in this. But I do like Robert Downey Jr.'s portrayal. He is kind of a jerk to him at some times. You can kind of see why Peter Parker feels that way. They really put you in the shoes of the character. And it was nice seeing Pepper Potts at the end, and that little nod of 2008, and seeing his feature suit that we saw in the Avengers Infinity War trailer. I'm just kind of burned out on Spider-Man, so whether I loved or hated this film, I always have the original Spider-Man films with Tobey Maguire, and I've kind of been there, done that on the character. He used to be my second favorite superhero, but this is definitely a step in the right direction. There's some aspects I like better in the Amazing Spider-Man films, more than this, but it's kind of like a mesh between both worlds of both previous universes, and I kind of hope they do more with it. Because with Marvel Studios, I was expecting something a bit more, but it does have a strong human story, teenage coming-of-age tale with some great set pieces and a really fantastic villain. So yeah, a 4 out of 5. And it definitely has a different look to it, and the score was good. Maybe not as epic as Hans Zimmer's or Danny Elfman's, but it was up there. But yeah, a 4 out of 5. That was my thoughts finally on Spider-Man Homecoming, and me personally, I'm happy that I didn't really hate the film. Spider-Man 3 and the worst parts of Amazing Spider-Man 2 are still below this. But I knew it wasn't going to be as good as the first two Tobey Maguire films, but at least it's somewhere in the middle. At least it's entertaining on its own. If you look at it as a film on its own, as a Spider-Man film on its own, it's entertaining. So I was happy that I didn't hate this, because I don't think I could have gone through that after Spider-Man 3 of just having like a really, really horrible Spider-Man film that would have just destroyed me as a fan of what little bit of love I have for Spider-Man left, you know? But yeah, that was my thoughts on Spider-Man Homecoming. If you haven't seen it, go ahead and check it out. It's worth one rental. It may be on HBO soon, I don't know, or Netflix. Definitely check it out when you get a chance. If you have seen Spider-Man Homecoming, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Did you like it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Was it not everything you expected? Just let me know in the comments below. And if you like this video, click the like button and subscribe for more videos.